You've been criticizing yourself all your lives and it hasn't worked. Try appreciating yourself and see what happens next. You've been trying to be aware of everyone else's thoughts, feelings, and emotions all your lives. Try being of your own thoughts and see what happens next. A hearty good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. My name is Arzu Chandran. I'm from Amity University, Mumbai. So, the title of our research paper is Self Compassion, Mindfulness, and Quality of Life. Self compassion is not just appreciating yourself when you're on your high, when you have done something very great. It is also understanding, empathizing yourself on all the moments and all the walks of your life, even when you're low. Mindfulness is the basic ability to be aware of your own surroundings at all the given moments, not just at the extreme situations like when a person is at their extreme high or extreme low, but at every time or every moment we are doing anything, rather that be in our own house or in the environment, everywhere. It's just understanding yourself. About our paper, the objective of our research is to fathom how self-compassion and mindfulness affects the quality of life. The reason we have chosen this topic is the current youth, even the kids, the adults, the old people have lost love for themselves in the chaos of life. They have stopped giving importance to their own self, their own mental health, and started neglecting themselves, and it in turn has affected their own quality of life. So, in order to study this thing better, we have chosen this topic. We carried out a research in India, USA, and Vietnam. We did a questionnaire survey in India and Vietnam only, as we did not get an ethical clearance from USA due to the shortage of time. So we after the conduction or the survey in India and Vietnam, we received 64 responses from India and 53 responses from Vietnam. We used the self-compassion scale and the mind quality of life scale by Michael. The self-compassion scale told us about the average level of self-compassion or the level of self-compassion each person has, and the quality of life told us about their quality of life. To know furthermore about this research, I would like to pass this on to Hota.
Hello, I'm Sorkasar Potter. I go to the Evergreen State College in the US. My contribution to our study was the analysis of secondary research. I discussed the subjective nature of self-reflection based data in quantitative research by exploring subjective identity, comfortability sharing personal information, and honesty. I also focused on studies using participants with specific conditions and their results to address the impact possible underlying physical and mental health conditions may have on our data. On the topic of self-compassion, I'll share a personal experience. I attended military academy throughout my adolescence. I was a perfectionist and incredibly self-critical. I used different methods of physical and mental self-harm anytime I didn't reach my own standards that ended up hurting me in the long run. During my years as an officer, I overworked myself with little to no sleep or food. Sometimes those bad habits show their ugly head, but I'm working on it. My personal takeaway from this project was exploring self-compassion within my perfectionism. In my class, we dedicated time to ancient arts, such as calligraphy and painting. Here I learned not only to take time to myself, to appreciate art, but also to be patient with my mistakes and forgive myself. I'll now pass it off to Brian.
Thank you, Hota. Hello, I am Brian Baldwin, an undergraduate from Evergreen State College in the U.S. I am in the class along with Surukusara Hota called Arts, Culture, and Social Entrepreneurship on the Silk Roads. I have been researching about mindfulness, self-compassion, and how it correlates with one's quality of life. I have found that mindfulness is just an important part of a larger framework. This important part of the puzzle of the quality of life starts with being present and connected to the moment, whatever it may be, no judgment. I found that daily practice of mindfulness, which can be done in many ways throughout your day can greatly improve your quality of life. I also found that mindfulness fits into a structure of self-compassion, which are made up of three pillars: self-kindness, common humanity, and you guessed it, mindfulness. And this self-compassion is made up of these three concepts, and then that then, when put into practice, can increase one's subjective experience of a happy life. Self-compassion seems to be the key to having a more interconnected life, which is a life of joy, which has been hard to do since the pandemic happened. Next slide. I have discovered through research, once you know what it has been I've discovered through research, once you know what it is and have experienced it, do you maximize the results of it? Which this led me into how one can attain this better quality of life, which is called flourishing by Dr. Martin Seligman. Dr. Seligman has come up with a great framework for that of flourishing in the acronym PERMA, which is shown here on that slide, which is positive emotion, engagement, relationship, meaning, and achievement. Okay, when you apply, which is essentially the areas of life that promote well-being or quality of life. When you apply what we have learned from mindfulness and self-compassion to these areas, you can notice how much more richer life can become. So after knowing all of this, what is stopping us from working out our minds and to attain a better quality of life and truly flourishing? Well, there are a few barriers like social constructs and where you're raised and a lot of different things that can be a barrier, but mental well-being, mind training is not easy at first and you can succeed, but it does get easier as you incorporate mindfulness meditation practices into your daily routine, which I have put together a brain workout plan of my own to help achieve this goal. Everyone will have their own unique challenges, but as we practice mindfulness and self-compassion, we can see amazing things happen, not only in our stories, but in the bigger story of all of us in this world of connections. And for the methodology, I'd like to go over the design used a part of the study was a quantitative non-experimental correlational design. Correlational research is a non-experimental research technique that helps researchers establish relationship between two closely connected variables. This type of research requires two different groups. The questionnaire explained the conditions, necessities, and reasons for carrying out the study previous to the administration of the questionnaires. And the data was used for this paper and was primarily conducted in India, Vietnam, after receiving ethical clearance from Amity University in Mumbai, and clearance was granted for Indian human subjects review, and Vietnam did not require human subjects review, from what I understand. A new separate email ID was created for the purpose of this survey to ensure the confidentiality and ethical reasons. No one outside the research group was given access to the respondent responses, including all of their personal information. And an informed consent of the subjects was taken, and there was no direct or indirect harm in any form to the participants. And lastly, self-compassion was measured through the self-compassion scale by Dr. Christian Neff, and quality of life was measured through the McGill's quality of life scale. The permission to use the self-compassion scale was obtained from the email ID given on their previous papers. McGill's quality of life questionnaire was an open access scale, so we were free to use it. And I will pass it down to Trin with any.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. My name is Jin. I'm from Nha Trang University, Vietnam. And about the methodology part, I would like to tell a bit detail about this. So this survey is a cross-cultural study, and it will use a series of statistics techniques to examine each category and discuss the associations among them. This study makes use of SPSS, which is a statistical tool used for transformation, calculation, and analysis of data. First, the study will run a frequency analysis of all variables and descriptive analysis of the scores. And this step will help us to have a basic idea about the information of the variable we choose. Mean and standard deviation of the scores is measured. Secondly, an independent sample t-test is run on the basis of gender for both the scores of individual countries and the mean scores of both countries together. The independent t-test, also called the two-sample t-test, is an inferential statistical test that determines whether there is a statistically significant difference between the means into unrelated groups. One way ANOVA is measured after the t-test on gender, and the values between groups and within groups is reported along with the calculated F ratio. ANOVA is a method to determine if the mean of groups is different. In inferential statistics, we use samples to infer properties of population. Statistical tests like ANOVA help us justify if sample results are applicable to populations. A correlation analysis, bivariate analysis of all variables. This step helps us to see how variables are associated with each other without controlling for other variables. And for those highly correlated variables, it may be necessary to combine them for further analysis to avoid any issues. And this is an important step and is measurable in reporting, which conveys the correlation based on the Pearson correlation and these two tests. And next, I will pass on to RC.
Hello. So about the results, the statistical significance of our test was India's data was more significant than the Vietnam's data. The self-kindness domain had more significant data in relation with the demographic variables and in relation with the Vietnam's data. The demographic variables of location, marital status were had major significant differences rather than the other demographic variables. India's self-compassion score, each subscale score was average, and the negative items had an average score, whereas the positive items had an above average to high score. The total self-compassion score of all the individuals, the mean of total compassion score was average, and the quality of life score was also average. In the parts where the self-compassion score was low, the quality of life score was also low. And wherein the self-compassion score was high, the quality of life score was high. So our hypothesis that self-compassion and quality and mindfulness does affect the quality of life was proved correct, because we could see that in our results. Now I would like to pass it on to Khontram to explain us the discussion and conclusion.
Thanks, Arju. Hello, everyone. My name is Wen Tram. I'm from Nha Trang University in Vietnam. And in our paper, I'm responsible for discussion and conclusion parts and translate survey question into Vietnamese with Ms. Jin. In my part, I affirmed the purpose of our paper that we carried out a cross-cultural study on how self-compassion and mindfulness affect human life, especially in overcoming problems. And self-compassion and mindfulness really have positive influences. They help us relax and release ourselves from negative emotions so that our quality of life is increasing. Next, after the survey, we got several ways of becoming happier from our participants. Both Indian and Vietnamese people have the same activities, such as reading books, spending more time with families and friends, listening to music, and playing sports. If you want, you can try these methods. And the last one is the limitation. In this research, we have just surveyed the people from 18 to 22. So it couldn't be right with the people in the other age. And this is the end of our presentation. Thanks for listening.
Thank you everyone for coming here, being here. I would just like to add that self-compassion is more important for your own self, listening to books, doing whatever you want, listening to music, reading whatever you want, doing whatever things that make you really happy are important than taking the stress of things which are probably not significant for you in the next 2 to 3 years. So I would request you all to do whatever makes you genuinely happy from your heart. Eat chocolates, do whatever things are actually going to yield your growth and not cause you stress, because overachieving, perfectionism, like Hotter said, will lead you down and will in turn decrease your quality of life. Thank you, everyone.